Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofrumento, and we have a really special guest here on today's episode. It's one that I'm excited for every episode, but this is a session that I've had circled on my calendar. So excited to talk to this amazing entrepreneur who, in my opinion, really epitomizes one of our core values here at the show, which is a rising tide lifts all boats. He is someone who not only has been a CEO, an executive himself, a business leader, but he's someone who really believes in the growth of all of us as entrepreneurs. And more importantly, he believes that that growth happens when we come together and when we share together and when we grow together. So let me tell you about him. His name is Mark McFatridge. He has over 25 years of professional experience and has played a prominent leadership role everywhere he's served. His background includes serving as the chief executive officer and board member for both publicly traded and privately held companies. Mark has led divisions of large companies and accumulated a portfolio of his own privately held companies. Now, back in 2021, Mark founded Quade to provide a community for CEOs, business owners, and entrepreneurs because only CEOs, business owners, and entrepreneurs truly understand the pressures and burdens of those roles. Quade was built to bring together CEOs, business owners, and entrepreneurs to support each other, push each other, and share diverse experiences to better live out their authentic selves beyond just work and lead change to improve themselves, their families, their companies, and their communities. I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview today with Mark McFatridge. All right, Mark, honestly, I'm so excited that you're here. Welcome to the show.
Brian, thanks so much. I'm pumped to be here as well. Thanks for the opportunity.
Heck yeah. I'm so excited because I don't even know where we're going to go in today's conversation, but I know it's going to be amazing. But let's start with your story. I told listeners your bio, but take us beyond that. Give us the short version of how the heck did Mark get here and fall into all these amazing things that you're doing today?
Man, I've been blessed beyond belief. It's been an amazing journey. 95% of my career has been in banking, and banking has shown me just amazing opportunities and introduced me to amazing people and all that. And, how I got to where we are today, back in 2006, my family and I were relocated with Regions Bank from Indianapolis, our home, to Springfield, Missouri, where I had the opportunity to run all of their community banks in Missouri and Western Kentucky. It was the first time that I qualified to join an organization called YPO, or Young Presidents Organization. I did that, and the timing was perfect for me because moving from Indy to Springfield, I didn't know anybody in the marketplace. I didn't know anybody in my management team. I didn't know really anybody out there, nor did my wife, nor did my kids. And so I would come home after working 60 or 70 hours a week and start to complain about my day. And my wife would be like, hang on, let me tell you about my day. And so I was on that proverbial island that many CEOs and presidents are on, where it's us against the world, right? And we're trying to figure it all out, but we don't have all the answers, yet we're expected to. And you feel lonely. And YPO, and specifically joining a YPO forum, really solved that for me. It provided me a peer group of 8 or 9 other CEOs that I could be myself with. I could let down my guard and say, man, I'm struggling, or I'm doing really well here, but I'm, over here, things are not going that great. And I would have this peer network who would say, look, first of all, it's going to be okay. Second, I've been in your shoes and I did X, Y, and Z, and I screwed up X and Y, but Z worked out really good for me. So you don't have to go down the path of X and Y and screwing it up. You can move right to Z. It was so impactful on me and my family that my wife joined a spouse forum. My son, who's now 28, lives in St. Paul, Minnesota. He started a YPO Next Generation chapter in St. Paul. My daughter is 26 here in Indianapolis. She started a YPO Next Generation chapter here. So YPO and the peer network has been really powerful for me. Fast forward to today in 2021, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with the rest of my career and just continue to reflect back on my time in YPO and YPO forums, and thought that there's got to be a place like a YPO form for people who don't qualify for YPO. Either they don't hit the minimum revenue requirements, or they're over the age of 45 when they become a CEO. And so that's when I founded Quade. It's to provide a forum type experience for CEOs, business owners, entrepreneurs, company presidents who don't fit the criteria to join YPO. So we have professional moderators. We come together monthly in groups of up to 10, meet for half a day. It's an opportunity where everybody can be their true and authentic selves. As a matter of fact, that's expected, right? Is let your guard down. If you are a three-piece wearing suit person, rock on. If you wear jeans or shorts or cutoffs, great, show up that way. If you drop an F-bomb every once in a while, that's okay too. Whoever you are, we expect you to be that in a Quade circle. So long story short, that's how we got here, Brian.
Yeah, I love the overview, Mark, especially because not only did the bug bite you, but it bit your entire family and you saw so much value in it. And I love how you really were on that commitment saying, wait, not everybody has this open door for them. Let me build that door for them. And obviously you're able to affect so many people. Mark, as you were telling that story, I deeply resonate with it. I've been an entrepreneur for 15 years since I was 19 years old. It's all I've ever known in my life. And as a result of that, I feel like a fish out of water when I'm with quote unquote normal people. When I'm with corporate people, they don't get it. They think everything's always rainbows and butterflies. They think I can just do whatever I want with my schedule, which obviously I do have flexibility, but I also have work. This is still real work. And so I always feel like people don't get that journey. Now, one thing I love about Quade and in doing the research ahead of today's episode is that all of your members, they all say the same thing where they're just like, whether someone's in my industry or not, they seem to get me by virtue of us being CEOs, by virtue of us being business owners, entrepreneurs. What are some of those things, Mark? Because so many of us have lived it, but I think you are uniquely prepared to articulate it and help us realize, holy cow, these are elements of me that having people who understand this, that will make me feel at home. That will make me feel understood. That will make me feel supported.
Yeah, Brian, I think that's a really great observation. One of the things that I think separates Quade is our focus on diversity, and diversity comes in many forms. It certainly can be demographic, whether it's racial or gender or whatever, but it's also industry, it's revenue size, it's tenure in the office, it's whether you're an entrepreneur or a hired gun, right? And so to me, that really reinforces the fact that whether you're a CEO of a $100 million company or a $100,000 company, the challenges are still basically the same. Certainly there are more commas, but the challenges of being a CEO are basically the same. And that's people, that's the economy, that's making strategic decisions, that's listening and empowering people to continue to grow and focus on scaling. All those things roll into this piece. And, it's funny when you talk about being in front of normal people, quote unquote, normal people that aren't CEOs. I think people forget that as a CEO or a business owner, you're not just focused on the well-being of your family. You're focused on the well-being of all the families that roll up underneath you, all of your employees and their families. And, that's a lot of pressure that not everybody can handle, and certainly most people don't understand that that's how CEOs and business owners think. And so to be able to be in a room of people that have those same pressures, those same opportunities, those same challenges is really, really powerful. And the diversity of those thoughts and those experiences also come together, make you really think through, why did I do this, right? So if I'm not in sales and marketing, for example, I can say, why would you do that? Or if I'm not in manufacturing, I can say, why would you do that? And it makes that person go, you know what? I don't know why we do that, right? Or really to think through and explain what that is. But that challenge that comes about from being surrounded by diverse individuals with diverse backgrounds that are different from you is super powerful.
Yeah, Mark, one thing you said in there that I really want to call out, because knowing the listener base as well as I do, I think they're going to be really surprised to hear when you say, for example, and I know this to be true in my own growth journey, is that what we face, even from the $0 mark as entrepreneurs, some of those things stay even when we're at the $100 million mark. I'm not at the $100 million mark, so I can't relate to that. But having spoken to so many entrepreneurs at that level and beyond, I do see that there's just part of the entrepreneurial psyche that we never settle. We are always reaching for more. We are always thinking. We're always dreaming. Some people come home from work and they quote unquote shut it off. We as entrepreneurs, we are always ideating. We are always thinking big. I think that there's that two sides of the coin. Seth Godin talks about it with regards to it's more dangerous to fly too low than to fly too high. It's actually much safer to fly too high. If you ask yourself bigger questions, you'll start finding bigger answers. And so, Mark, with that in mind, I'd love for you to talk to all of those people who probably do feel a little bit of imposter syndrome. They do feel behind. They do feel like they're an island of one and understanding what they're going through, because you've seen people come in and be like, oh my gosh, I'm home. I found all these people. What are some of those things that never quite go away, Mark, but we don't necessarily talk about on the entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, no, I think, man, what a great observation. The thing that never goes away, right, is there's always something next, right? I think as entrepreneurs, as CEOs, as business owners, there's a constant focus on what's next and how do we get to the next level and what that is. Frankly, that's not always healthy, right? And I think that's one of the other things that coming together with other folks that are in that same situation or face those same challenges or opportunities is, it's okay to temper that, right? It's okay to kind of stay where you are. If you want to grow, let's grow. Let's do it. We'll help you get there. But at the same time, how much is enough, and when do we want to dial it down, and when does it start to affect our whole self, right? Which is another key component of Quade. Is we want you to be excellent both in your personal, your family, and your professional lives. So, to be able to have that group to say, man, it's okay. You don't have to go to that next level, right? Why do you want to do that at 56 years old? Why are you going to do that as that next step? But it's not something that's turned off easily in entrepreneurs or business owners. So that's the biggest one, really.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with regards to that. And you're right, having those, like for me, it's a circle of entrepreneurial friends where people who are maybe a few steps ahead of me, people who are a few steps behind me, one way or another. I always repeat that phrase, you can't read the label from inside the jar. Even just hearing their perspectives gives me that fresh insight into it. But I've got to ask you this, Mark, because you said that diversity takes so many different forms. Well, also networking, peer groups, that takes so many different forms. And a lot of people, myself included, in my early 20s especially, I didn't understand what a peer group meant. I viewed it as I was a member of BNI, I was a member of the Chamber of Commerce, where those are very transactional groups. Quade isn't transactional to an extent. I'd love to hear your perspective on that. But what is this form of networking? A lot of people have never networked or found a peer group for the sake of having people who understand them. Talk to us about that big difference.
Yeah, no, as a matter of fact, I almost go out of my way to say that Quade is not a networking group. And, while BNI groups and Chamber of Commerce groups are super important to build business and all that, this is almost the opposite. This is almost a place where you can let your guard down and not have to worry about, am I dressed appropriately? Am I going to offend this person if I say this? If, whatever. It's not about business development. It's about whole self-development, and to be able to be your own person and that type of thing, and be celebrated for that. And frankly, to be held accountable if you're not being that. And so that's, to me, that's the main difference. What I will say, though, is because you become so intimate with your, I call them allies, Quade allies, that your network expands exponentially because your network becomes their network. And because you have this ultimate trust and great feeling for those allies that are in your circle, you know that if they refer somebody to you, it's somebody that you're going to want to do business with, that you can trust will do great business for you, with you, and that type of thing. So yeah, definitely not a networking group. It's more about building your whole self. But your network expands exponentially because of the networks of your Quade allies.
Yeah, I love that you call that out. As someone who's so intentional with words, I really appreciate how you say we are not a networking group, because you're right. In doing the research from what I found about Quade, it's just the members, they all have a smile on their face, Mark. I love your website. We're definitely going to point people towards your website at the end of today's session, but I really love seeing that everyone is on board for that. And on that note, one thing that I really like about your networking group is that it really is, you said it a few times already, your authentic selves. And Mark, in a world where everyone wants to talk about the latest marketing trends and fads and the coolest social media network that's popping up that we should be using in our next promo, I really appreciate it. It's something we've had on this show for 7 years now, Mindset and Motivation Monday. This is a third of our content is talking about developing the mind of an entrepreneur, developing the decision-making of an entrepreneur. What does it mean to you when you talk so deeply about that development of our authentic selves? Because I see, as a linguist, I see two sides of that coin. Authentic is obviously there. You put that there for a reason. And ourselves, not just our businesses. Talk to us about that approach.
Yeah, I think, and I'll give you an example. When I first moved to Springfield, Missouri, that was my first true company president role, right? And so I was a banker in a medium-sized community. My wife makes fun of me all the time that I wouldn't go to the grocery store on a Saturday morning unless I had showered and I didn't necessarily wear a button-up shirt or anything, but I was afraid. I was this image. I was more about the role than me as an individual. And, as I started to feel more comfortable in myself, build self-awareness, I realized that I was way more successful when I allowed myself to be me. And, as a matter of fact, we've actually gone beyond just using the word authentic. We use the phrase unapologetically authentic, meaning I'm going to be myself, and it's okay, and I'm comfortable with that, and we're going to celebrate that. And unapologetically authentic doesn't mean that you can be a jerk, right? And just say, look, you've got to deal with me of who I am. As a matter of fact, to successfully be unapologetically authentic, you have to have that emotional IQ that allows you to understand how you learn from other people and allow them to be authentic to help you be yourself as well. So, yeah, I mean, for me, that's super important, and it starts with self-awareness. You've got to know who you are, what you want to be, how you want to go about life, where you're most comfortable. We talked a little bit beforehand. Give me a jeans and sweatshirt all the time. That's who I am, and so allow yourself to be that and celebrate it, right? And man, if you can do that, it just takes a burden off of you, and you don't have to think about who you have to be today. You're going to be the same person no matter where you are.
Yeah, I love that perspective, Mark. I'm gonna say this because listeners obviously can't see you and I right now. You and I can see each other, and it's immediately evident some things that you really value, Mark. I can see Butler basketball, for example, is behind you, which thank you for Brad Stevens on behalf of all of Boston. I really appreciate that. And so on those notes, I totally agree with you in showing up as your authentic self. And I wonder how much of that is about vulnerability. Mark, this is a topic that I'm really committed to you and I talking about on the air here today, because I don't think we talk about this in the world of entrepreneurship enough. And for good reasons, sometimes we as business owners will never be able to show customers certain sides of us. We'll never be able to talk about, oh gosh, I'm worried about making payroll this month, or oh gosh, revenues are declining, expenses are coming up. What should I do? We'll never be able to talk about those things publicly, but behind closed doors in peer groups with people who understand it, that's where we can be vulnerable. Talk to us about the role of vulnerability, not just showing up as our authentic selves, but really just, I always say, show me your scars, showing your scars behind those closed doors.
Yeah, Brian, you nailed it, right? There are few places in the world where a CEO or a business owner can be vulnerable, right? You can't do it in front of your staff fully, right? You can't do it in front of your teammates. You can't do it in front of your customers. Heck, sometimes you can't even do it in front of your spouse or family because you've got to have this, you feel like you have to have this front to put on. So the one place that you can do it is a place like a Quade circle, right? Where you've got executive peers that are going through the exact same thing that you're going through. They're challenged like you are. They have opportunities like you do. And to be able to let your guard down and be vulnerable just takes this weight off your shoulders for, at a minimum, 4 hours a month, right, when we come together. And that weight is amazing. And to share those thoughts and challenges and opportunities with people that have either been there or are going to be there or are going through the same thing as we speak right now, right? It is powerful to know that you're not alone. And you mentioned imposter syndrome earlier. I think it's another way to validate that you do belong in this role, and you're not the only one out there. And it's being vulnerable really allows you to connect with other people at a level that most don't get to.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And as you said that, I was thinking in my own life, where are the places where as a business owner, I get to be truly vulnerable? And you're right, it really only comes. Our family, we don't want them to worry about money and the risk of having a business. Our staff, you're right, we can only do that to an extent. Our customers, we can't. Our greater audience, but it's always our fellow entrepreneurs, because I'm sure, Mark, you've experienced this. Everyone in Quade has experienced it. I've experienced it. The second you're vulnerable, you quickly realize, gosh, every single entrepreneur goes through these things. And on that note, I think it's fascinating how frequently you and I have been in business for a long time, but we interchangeably throw out the words entrepreneur, business owner, CEO. Mark, I think your career background is super impressive. Obviously, you're very accomplished from a professional background. What is that role of CEO? Because here on the show, it's become an increasing topic for us amongst our listeners, is really teaching them. Obviously, our show is called Wantrepreneur to Entrepreneur, but I want people to start thinking as CEOs. Mark, with your CEO hat on, what is the difference between just a CEO versus your average business owner, your average entrepreneur?
It's mentality. The CEO mentality. The CEO, your role as a CEO or business owner is the same, right? It needs to be strategically focused. You need to set the vision for who you are going to be, who your company is going to be. You need to be able to communicate the role of every individual on your team, what their role is in achieving that mission and that vision. You, as a CEO, your biggest responsibility is to clear the way for your teammates to carry on the mission of your organization. If you're down in the weeds, if you're working day to day, if you're the only person that your clients can talk to, or your employees, or you have to sign off on every check, you're not a CEO. You're just an employee. And I think, and as a matter of fact, you're losing value in your company if you're doing those types of things. So one of the things that we focus on a lot in Quade is moving from that business owner. It's funny, you see it on LinkedIn profiles of business owner. To me, and this is a hot take, I guess, to me, if you've got business owner on your LinkedIn profile, that's an ego thing for you. That's you need to move out of that and move to the CEO mentality of, I'm going to be a strategic thinker. I'm going to set the mission and vision of our company. I'm going to communicate to every one of my teammates what their role is in helping us achieve that. I'm going to clear any hurdles that are in their way to help carry that out. I'm going to build partnerships that are strategic, that are going to help us carry on for a really, really long time. I'm less inclined to know every job that's out there. I'm less inclined to sign off on every expense check. I'm less inclined to do any of the other 1,000 mundane things that you could do. I want to empower people to do that so they grow as well. But honestly, it's about having that mentality of, look, I'm leading an organization and we're going to be around for a really long time. We're going to continue to scale. We're going to provide for my family, for your family, for the families of our clients. We're going to do all of those great things, but it starts with the CEO mentality.
Yes, Mark, you called it a hot take, but gosh, am I here for it? I feel the same way. You called out all the business owners on LinkedIn. I'm going to call out all the quote unquote entrepreneurs on Instagram. Everybody on Instagram has entrepreneur in their bio these days. And I'm like, how many of you are acting like CEOs, make decisions like CEOs, have a growth mindset like CEOs? Anyone can say that they're an entrepreneur. So I love that you called that out. And on that note, actually, Mark, let's go a little bit deeper here, because I think as business owners, as CEOs, as entrepreneurs, we have no shortage of doubt around us. We have our own self-doubt. We've got doubt from family, doubt from friends, doubt from a lot of people. So we know that negative emotion of doubt, but I would say what we don't know is constructive criticism. I would argue that we don't get enough constructive criticism, which is why I love, having done the research for today about Quade, is that It's right there on your website. Allies who have your back. In a Quade circle, your allies won't always tell you what you want to hear, but what you need to hear to be your best whole self. Mark, we've made it seem all positive today about all the great things, and we're going to feel understood and everything. Talk to us about those times where we as CEOs, as business leaders, need someone to say, hey, Mark, hey, Brian, how do you guys not see this? What the heck are you thinking right now?
Yeah, to me, this is one of the key reasons why you would join a CEO peer group, right? Is you need people that aren't yes people, that aren't just agreeing with you because you're the boss. One of the beauties that I've seen over the last couple of years in Quade is, these folks all become very intimate. They know each other intimately. They know their life stories. They know their kids' stories. They know, the struggles and the great things that they've done in their company. But they're not buddies necessarily. Like, they don't necessarily hang out and go out to dinner with the spouses on Friday night. So there's this independence where they can share. If you present a horrible idea, they're going to say, that's a horrible idea. Why are you doing that? Whereas if you're talking to a buddy down the street who you guys are going out to dinner on Friday night, they may not say that bluntly, for sure, because they don't want to jeopardize your outside of business relationship. And so just having this, a group that knows you intimately, but they're still independent, and they want to see you succeed, and they want to prevent you from failing. And so if you're presenting something that's just outrageous, they're going to call it out and say, why would you think about that in that way? And so to me, having that group of independent folks that are able to be radically candid, right? That to me, that's a wonderful term, and I think that's what it's all about. Is we're here for your growth, we're here for your success, but if you're going down a path that we think is silly, we're going to call you out.
Yeah, I love that. Radically candid. That's two terms I've never heard together before, but you're right. I think that's absolutely essential for all of us in our business growth journeys, our personal growth journeys. I absolutely love it, Mark. I can't believe we've gone this long, and I'm going to take full responsibility here. A lot of listeners are probably thinking, wait, what does this actually look like, Mark? I've never had a peer group. Does this look like monthly Zoom meetings? Does it look like whatever these masterminds are that I always hear people talking about? What does a peer group actually look like?
Yeah, in Quade, we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 to 10 business owners, CEOs, company presidents come together. We meet monthly, 10 times a year, 4 hours at a time. Structurally, the agenda is pretty consistent. We'll have an opening that not quite a icebreaker, but really kind of a mentality shift to help you get into the flow of what the meeting is going to be. So we ask everybody to give us 3 words that represent where you are today with your mind, your body, and your soul. And so that gets you started. We bring in an educational resource, and that educational resource can be anything. We've had compensation strategies, we've had capital markets updates, we've had mental health in the workplace, personal branding, company branding, that type of stuff. So it's whatever those that circle needs, we'll go out and find an educational resource. We do updates. So give me 2 or 3 things that are going on in your world, and that could be professionally, it could be personally, it could be with your family. You'll get some feedback from your allies around that. At least one of the allies will do what I call an exploration, which is an opportunity or a challenge that you're facing, and that person will dictate what they want from their allies. I want you to just sit there and whine, or let me whine and listen for 20 minutes. It could be, I would like some contacts that you have that can help me through this. I want your input on, maybe I'm presenting a pricing model and I want to pitch this to you, and I want your feedback. And then the last part, the last piece of a Quade meeting is all about accountability. So we ask you, what is one thing you're going to accomplish before we meet again? And then that starts your update when you come back the next month to make sure that you did what you said you were going to do. So if you wrap it all up, it's updates of what's going on in your world. There's an education component. There is the exploration, and then there's accountability. All those we're professionally moderated. All of our, I call them Quade directors, have led substantial companies as CEOs. So to me, they've led at least a $25 million revenue company. So they've been in your shoes. They understand the challenge that you have, the opportunities that you face. So they're not just a trained moderator. I'm sure we have better trained moderators out there, but our folks have lived what you're going through, and so they were able to add that expertise as well. So that's what a Quade Circle looks like. I'm really proud of the members that we have, our allies. I'm really proud of the directors that we're adding. You asked, most of these, they can be done either in person, or we do have virtual circles that are going on as well. So it's whatever works for you. We'll find a circle for you.
Yeah, Mark, I'm really glad that I asked that. And thank you so much. I really appreciate you showing that structure to us because it makes it feel so tangible. And I think for a lot of people who don't have that peer group, it's going to really expose, wait, I don't have any of these components. I never have these in my life. I'm trying to figure all of this out on my own. So I really appreciate you sharing that structure with us. And Mark, this is somehow, time has flown by today. I knew that it would with you, but I always love giving my guests the hard part of the episode, which is with so many different things that we talked about in today's episode, from the mindset stuff, CEO versus business leader versus entrepreneur, having peers, having allies, getting that positive understanding that people get you, and as well as the constructive criticism that we all need from time to time. With all of that in mind, Mark, what's an action that you want every listener to take from here so that they can move forward in their businesses, move forward in their development of their own authentic whole selves? Lay something actionable and strategic on us here.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it's got to be self-awareness. You've got to understand who you are, and you can do that in a variety of ways. Whether it's DISC, or it's what a predictive index, or finding your why, that type of stuff. So I think it starts with self-awareness, and once you have that, then I think you are you have the emotional intelligence to then seek out a tribe of people, right, that are going through yours, and whether it's Quade, or it's another CEO peer group, or it's just a consistent group of other folks that are your actual peers. And again, I think that's really important, is to make sure that you surround yourself with a group of folks, because you can't go through this alone. If you do, it's just a slower headway. I guess technically you can do it alone, but in my mind, you're going to go much slower than if you have this team around you that's pushing you, that's holding you accountable, that's telling you when you're off base, that's cheering you on, that's pulling you up. So I guess I'll leave you with two things. One, identify who you are, understand, become really self-aware, and then two, find your people. Find the people that are going to hold you accountable, that are going to be independent and be radically candid with you, and tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And if you can do that, man, you're going to accelerate your personal and professional growth.
Yes, amen to that. I think it is universal advice, which is hard to come by. Universally, it will help all of us. You can't go wrong by doing those two things. So Mark, I love that you chose those two action items for all of us here today. And this is the beauty of Quade, is I can imagine that within your circles, this is where the accountability starts. Hey, go do these things by the next time that we see you. So listeners, you have your work cut out for you. Mark, it's a natural segue into, I've been teasing your website a heck of a lot during today's session. Drop those links on us. For entrepreneurs thinking, holy cow, how am I going to find my peer group? What is inside of these? And they want to check out Quade. They want to check out all the awesome stuff that you're doing. Drop those links on us right now.
Yeah, it's quadecircle.com. You can go there. We've got a way that you can apply to be both an ally and a director. Certainly, you can find us on LinkedIn. Mark McFatridge, that's McFatridge. You can find me on LinkedIn. We're there. Those are the best two ways to get a hold of me, to get through Quade and identify those opportunities that are out there.
Yes, listeners, you all know the drill. You do not have to remember those links. Wherever it is that you're tuning into today's episode, scroll right on down and check out the show notes. We are linking to quadecircle.com. That's QUADE circle.com, quadecircle.com. You'll find that link down below, as well as a link to Quade on LinkedIn, as well as a link to Mark on LinkedIn. Drop him a note. You've seen how generous and experienced he is in so many different aspects, and how much he believes in connection. So don't be shy. Otherwise, Mark, on behalf of all the listeners here today and everyone inside the Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur community, thank you so much for joining us here today on the podcast.
Awesome, Brian. Thanks so much.